Hey, this is Tisoki back for round two, baby, of the Nebula Music Podcast.
I'm glad that you're okay. You survived. I feel like that's a crowning achievement for anyone who's moved to the U.S. is surviving your first shootout. Just being like, yeah, okay.
I am alive.
Well, I'm happy, dude. And I think right here is probably a good place to start the interview, if you don't mind. I know we've been just chatting about some random stuff, but my man Bradley is tuning in again. If you guys remember, he was on the show last year. We were in the middle of the pandemic when this was going on. And now Bradley is just kind of catching us up with some of the stuff that he's doing. He recently moved to or near Los Angeles, technically the OC. But it's still closer to LA than any other town. I'm curious, man, how are you liking the OC right now, though? Because the OC has its own different vibe too.
Yeah, I vibe with it. It's kind of the way that me and my partner describe it is it's like the best parts of LA with the best parts of San Diego. I mean, you've got like the kind of more metropolitan kind of cities, but it's still relatively chill. You know, you can go places without being stuck in too much traffic.
Yeah,
I think it's at least for now, you know, with everything going on in the world, it's kind of a perfect balance to be close enough to LA so I can just drive up there if needs be, and then also just be completely out of everyone's way at the same time.
Yeah, and not deal with all that traffic. That's probably the one that people hate the most when they come up to LA. Never experienced, although it's been a little bit better. But I'm curious, man, like now that we're technically over, I mean, fingers crossed that everything is 100% fine now. It looks like it basically is, but you know, there's little rumors here and there of, you know, things might go to shit again, but yeah, I don't think it will. But how was the pandemic for you, man? This whole entire year and a half of just absolute craziness, no shows, nothing, just at home producing, probably, most likely. But how was it overall? If you can sum it down, like a sentence or a small paragraph, how was the pandemic for you?
I would say it was extremely productive, and then it just was not productive at the same time. I think that's the best way to describe it. You know, we all went into it being like, yo, we've got all this fucking time at home. We're gonna, you know, lock in and get as much shit done, and everyone kind of started off strong. You know, everyone's kind of morale was high in the sense of we don't have to travel, we don't have to do anything. And then I think towards kind of like the tail end of last year, everyone just started getting burnt out because it's just, you know, you're so used to, at least with like touring and stuff, you're so used to constant change of scenery and constant change of, you know, situations and stuff that when you're waking up every day and doing the same thing for the first part, you can get in a bit of a flow. But then I don't know, for musicians at least, I know it's and different artists, it's just, it becomes a bit of a curse because that change of scenery and pace and everything is kind of what motivates you to keep going with music. So yeah, I would say the start of it, you know, great. I think everyone was on the same wave of like, yo, I'm gonna, like, I remember seeing people like, yo, I'm gonna make a new song every day. I'm gonna do merch. I'm gonna do fucking streaming and sessions and lessons and all that kind of shit. And then by the end of it just, I don't know, it just looked like everyone was unemployed at the end of it, just doing nothing.
I mean, it's funny because I agree with you. I feel like there was this pressure that everyone, because we had no idea what to do or when things were going to be normal. Well, at first I feel like things, you know, I think when March hit, people were like, oh, this can't possibly last more than a month or two. And then once it really set in and that this was for the long haul, everyone was just like, yeah, let's get some shit done. But dude, I'm a pretty, not hard worker, but I'm a pretty busy bee. Like I do a lot of things. And even for me, there was just a lot of moments where I just couldn't do anything. I just sat there playing video games or whatever because I just couldn't. Like even if I did something, it came out shitty. And I just realized I was wasting my time because I wasn't focused. I don't know, man. Did you find that? Did you feel like were there moments where you were working on stuff and it just came out shitty, even though you tried?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it's kind of like I said about the change of scenery and stuff. There was just no like motivation, and obviously I had a lot of like deadlines and stuff with other people's projects, and you know, producing other stuff other than my own as well. And what I found working with those people was it was just like everything was kind of like put on hold because everyone was just overwhelmed by this like feeling of it was like dread, like.
Mm.
And I remember it, like you were saying, like at the start of March, everyone was very optimistic in the sense of oh, it's going to be 2 weeks, it's going to be a month, it's going to be whatever. And I remember, I had just played a show in Hawaii, and we were flying back from Hawaii, and the face masks weren't a thing yet, but everyone was wiping down like the plane seats with like Clorox and everything like that, and there was kind of like a good spirit in the air, but I in my mind I was like, this is gonna get fucking bad, like real bad, real fast. And I remember me and my girl got home, and it was just confusing. And then after that month where where the optimism started drifting for a lot of people, we tried to go buy food at the store, and
Yeah.
it felt like martial law. Like we had to travel like 40 miles to like get bread. It was so fucking weird. It felt like the apocalypse. And
Yeah.
I think that that period between it being announced per se and the month later where shit started going fucking south, I think that was the sweet spot where everyone was like down to work, down to do everything, down to keep busy. And then after that, when things started going really south, I think that was just the kind of the dread that people weren't ready for.
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like, for me specifically here, where I live in the valley, there's you kind of get stuck out here a little bit when you live a long time in the valley. There's not many places you can go.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. There's tons of places you can go, but normally there's so much traffic that you just kind of get stuck here. So all the places are pretty much in close proximity, and there was nothing. No matter where you went, the toilet paper shit, like all that stuff, things that people already know that happened. But it's just insane when that happened, and like it hits you that, oh shit, we're in this like lull, or we're in this like for the long run. I'm randomly curious. Did you ever have like a desire to just like go back home, or just like, F this, I'm out? Obviously you couldn't have at the time because I believe travel was banned for a little while, but did it make you just want to like peace out, just go back home?
Yeah, I mean, like my I mean, we're engaged now, but yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. But yeah, my partner, she's obviously from San Diego. She has a whole career out here.
So is mine.
With her family. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, there was, because we had the dogs and everything, but there was definitely a point where, I was seeing what was happening in the UK, and hey, not to shit on America or anything, but like, I just saw the UK handling it a bit better. Regardless of politics, regardless of social issues, without getting too far into that, because that's a whole nother can of worms. But like, in regards strictly to the pandemic, the UK obviously has free healthcare. They turned a huge convention center into a hospital, like an overflow hospital in the center of London, pretty much overnight.
Yeah.
And just kind of the way that the UK was handling it. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, definitely there was definitely a moment where in my mind I was, and hey, between me and all the other British people out here, we all speak to each other, and no, honestly, we were all just like, yo, should we just like fucking go home? Like, but that was scary because it was like, we all came to America, whether, you came here 4 years ago like me, or, some other people I was speaking to came here like 11, 12 years ago, and they've been living here. And it just this resounding feeling of like, maybe we should kind of just dip. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I never followed through with it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
weird.
I think it would have been hard for you to even try to do it, to be honest with you. I remember I have two friends of mine who were here right before the pandemic hit. Annie Wagstaff and Hannah, I forget your last name. I apologize. But they basically like got out right before the pandemic hit. And by the way, not to like digress, but I feel like, I think no matter what, it should be said that it's completely fair to criticize, where we're from and all that stuff. Like, there's no judgment coming from me. Like, I totally get it. I think most Americans in general, at least in the West Coast, that's as far as I can speak. I know that it changes no matter where you go, but we all know that every country has their ups and downs, So I think it's healthy to be able to like pinpoint that, and I think a lot of us do. Like I'm born and raised here in California. We saw what the rest of the world was doing, and we were all like just confused why we weren't doing the same thing. Trust me, like what you were thinking is what almost everybody, at least out here, was thinking. We were all like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what? We could totally be handling this and we're not. And so anyways, what I'm saying is I think if you had a desire to leave, it's completely justified. I'm surprised that you didn't, but I mean, it makes sense though. It made sense that you felt like that. I think a lot of people tried to get out, but it was just, you couldn't, you were stuck here.
I mean, yeah, I've got, my close friend, who's, also does the music thing. He's actually on his way out here from the UK, and he has to stay in Mexico for 2 weeks beforehand,
Really?
So just
like quarantine?
Yeah. I mean, technically quarantine. I mean, he's fully vaccinated and everything, but obviously the travel directly from the UK to US, if you don't have an NIE, which is a national interests exception or something, pretty much for like high paid businessmen. So like, if it's in national interests to get people out here, if you don't have that, then a lot of people are passing through Mexico or other areas to quarantine where travel is free between America and that country. So yeah, I think the worst part about this whole thing in terms of, international travel and immigration issues and all that kind of stuff is things are changing every single day. Like,
yeah,
I was booked to go back, I think just briefly after the last time we spoke last year, and that got cancelled. And then I was meant to go back actually end of this month, and the embassy in the UK, the US embassy in the UK, just cancelled everything. And it's just
really?
like, yeah, I had like flights booked, I had accommodation booked and everything, and everything is just changing so fast that it's either going to cost you a fucking ton of money to book it super last minute to know that you are for sure going, or you're going to lose a load of money because you booked it far out and then it gets cancelled. It's just a mess. Like, it's just an absolute mess.
God damn, dude. It's funny because I feel like this year I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of really cool people, but it gave me a different insight because normally, conversations are all different, but there's usually the sense of normality when it comes to it. But for the past year, there hasn't been any sense of normality. And one thing that I gathered from a lot of musicians, and I'm curious if you felt the same way too, I feel like you might have, but I don't know for sure, was this, I'm not going to say regret, but a lot of musicians who are more like on the up and up, people who are like really just in the grind. And you're a very notable producer, but I would argue like, for a lot of people who have gone to your level, it's still like a very big leap from like where you're at to like say where like the mega stars are at, right? And there's a lot of musicians that I talked to who, like I said, they weren't necessarily regretful for their profession choice, but they noticed how like little the government cared for artists during that period. And there was this moment where I talked to some people that were considering or thinking about, what did I get myself into? Maybe I should have like thought about doing something else rather than just doing music full time, and obviously with the notion of that, it's going to come back to normal at some point. But what I'm trying to get at, did you ever feel worried a little bit, like in that sense? Like, I don't know if you did or not, and it's okay if you did, but I'm always curious what goes through musicians' head, because there's so much that goes into play when you are a musician and doing this full time. And when the whole world shuts down, it questions everything. It makes you question everything. So I'm curious, did you ever feel worried throughout this whole pandemic that maybe you weren't going to be able to do this anymore? Maybe you should have chosen to do something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I think it's extremely valid for, anyone to feel like that, especially like you said, with the lack of, public help essentially from government bodies or just anyone in general. I'm very blessed and very lucky to be in a position where, regardless of having an artist project, I'm comfortable to survive off other streams from within music. And to be brutally honest with you, I mean, from where I'm from and where I came up, it's never really been a supported career choice. It's never really been, and that's not to say there's not organizations and people in the UK who support it. It's just more so like, even like years back to like the Sex Pistols and stuff. Being a musician is very rebelling in itself, regardless of what
Mm.
kind of music you make, whether you're in a band or you're a singer or you're a fucking pop megastar. You're still going to get shunned at some point or another. That's just, in a way, that's just the beauty of being an artist, because that resistance kind of drives you further. For myself personally, music is kind of all I've known. I mean, I've been lucky enough to never have to work another job. I've never had a retail job. I've never, I've just done music full time since I was 15, 16 as some kind of form of income. And I guess career, as you could say. But yeah, there's been times where I've definitely been like, is this right? And seeing the resounding feeling from the government or other people, I have obviously felt shunned and in a bit of a tight spot. But I don't think I would ever give up on music or kind of move away from it. I understand a lot of other people have, and like I said, completely sympathize with that, and I fucking understand it because it's tough as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for me personally, man, I mean, this, at the end of the day, this is all I know. And there's obviously other things that I aspire to do, like in different areas of artistry, like clothing and things like that, and
Really?
shit like that. Yeah, like I would love to just, branch out, and I kind of have with a few other things, just kind of on the angel side of things. But yeah, man, that's what I'm trying to say is I understand where people would be like, I fuck this, I'm going to work at Starbucks. But for me, yeah, I don't know any different, man. This is this is all I know. So I don't even know how that would look if I quit music.
Well, to be honest with you, you're probably not missing much by not ever having a retail job. I worked one a long time ago, and it's not very fun. But I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think that's so cool that you seem very self-aware of where you're at. And that's not to say, and just to be clear, like I'm not trying to look down or talk down to anyone whose their life choices have changed, because I'm a big proponent of doing what's best for you. I found a commonality because this year was so weird that it made people really just think about things that they normally don't get a chance to. And I found that there was a lot of creative people who they were in the grind because everyone else was in the grind. And then a lot of their creativity just kind of needed to take a break. And so they moved on for a little bit. And who knows, they may come back very, very soon. But I think it's important to talk about that, because I do feel like sometimes when you're in a city like LA or just in a scene for music, it can be very tempting to ignore what you're feeling just because everyone else is still pushing hard. And I always am a big proponent of being like, you got to understand where your motivation's coming from. And if it tells you to keep doing it, then go for it. But maybe, who knows, you got to figure some stuff out too. But it seems like you know exactly where you want to go. And that's good. That's good to know that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, everyone's situation is different, and I think to like have an umbrella over it and look around you and be like, well, these people are doing, and hey, shit, man, I'm guilty of this as well, looking around and being like, well, these people are doing this, and why aren't I doing it, and it's you've got to just I don't know, step away, and it's I guess it's the same with success, there's a lot of my peers are really, really fucking successful and have huge careers and yeah, sure, like 10 years ago I would have looked around and been like, why don't I have that, why couldn't I have that? But getting older and viewing the world in, I guess, a more mature way, it's like I've got my own path. I'm very fortunate to be living off music and being surrounded by some really, really incredible people, but that doesn't mean to say that I need to be anywhere else. And I can be inspired by these other people, I can have goals from these other people, and things to work towards, but I feel like if you're too headstrong on chasing this, umbrella term of success within a scene just because other people are doing better than you, it's just a dead end, and you're never gonna feel completely satisfied.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it right there. It's one of those never-ending cycles, and tons of people have talked about this before. People
Yeah,
who are way smarter than me, but I do feel like it means more, in my opinion, and this is why I do what I do. It means more coming from people like you than say like a billionaire, because it's to me,
yeah,
when a billionaire says that, yeah, they've succeeded, but they're on like a completely different planet, which odds are most of us probably will never be billionaires. The hope is there, obviously, but
yeah,
like there needs to be more from people like you who have succeeded, who are doing well and have a very good niche under their belt, because you've been Tisoki this whole time. You haven't really obviously you've taken influence from other people, but I feel like you've always carved your own path. And I want to keep talking about the music, but you actually piqued my interest a little bit earlier. You said that you have thought about like venturing into like fashion and other things. What other things are you interested in? I'm curious, because I always love learning about what other things artists do, because I'm always surprised at all like how much people do outside of their work.
yeah. I mean, so the you know I think as we mentioned earlier in the past episode we did like last year, it's just a lot of my work is collaborative with other people, other people's projects, and I think that lends itself to being open to other mind frames and other visions that aren't solely my own, and I think that's the cool part about fashion and art and stuff, is it's kind of you can have 1,000 people working on one thing, or you can have one person working on one thing, and that's just really really attractive to me in a business sense of things. It's kind of something else I was trying to look into getting into is like angel investing.
Nice.
Yeah, and finding things to put my money in and be behind. I mean, I know with the pandemic and everyone's been getting stimulus checks, so they all think that they're experts at the stock market. But like, just yeah, from that's something that I've also been interested in, for many years, and like I try and be savvy with my money. I'm not like an idiot with my cash, so I just yeah. So that's kind of another thing I want to try and get into, in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. Just to keep the focus on the music and, obviously every drive towards that. But it with music, especially, kind of another point that you mentioned earlier, I think along the lines of like feeling stagnant, is music is always going to be there, and it's an ever changing thing. You can work on music at like 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. There's no time crunch for it. You can release one song a week or one song a year. It's a project or a music career is always going to be there. So it's kind of finding really cool, different, I guess, artistic or different things to do in the interim and in that time period where, you don't really want to work on music, but at the same time, you don't really have any deadlines and, you don't have any commitments. So that's kind of what I'm trying to think about, what to fill that space up with. Because there is a lot of time where I am so fucking busy with my project and other people's projects and different components of the music industry, but there's also times where I'm kind of just sitting around twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know that feeling, man. I hate that feeling.
yeah.
But
I mean, me too. But it's natural. But I'm a workaholic through and through. So I'm just trying to think of different ways to keep busy.
no, you know what? You're very smart, and I think that's the way to go, because, well, I relate with you in many, many different ways, and I've said things on this podcast throughout the years, so a lot of the fans probably already know this, but I actually come from the fashion industry. Before I did music, I did designing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I've always been a multitasker, and I remember I grew up here in LA. So for me, I remember in the music scene specifically, it's changed now. Like, it's different now. But I remember being younger, there was this sentiment that music needed to be all you did. You know, like no matter where you went, if you went to the clubs or you went to like the studio or wherever you went, there was, and it wasn't like said, but you get what I'm saying. There's like a feeling. You just felt it. People were like, yeah, this is all I do. And this is like my job. And I eat and breathe music, whether it was production, whether it was like dance music or singing or whatever. That's all they did. And I remember feeling like such an oddball because I had my hands in different pies, and it was considered like a weird thing that I was this designer slash entrepreneur slash musician, you know, and it was like, well, where's your focus at? And my mind would be like, well, on everything. Like it isn't just on one thing. I'm very good at everything that I do. And I just kind of shift my focus. I feel like that is becoming the norm now. Not so much anymore, like how it used to be before. But I do find that a lot of the smart artists like you understand that there are moments where, like you said, music will always be there, but there are just moments where your brain is just either burnt out or it just needs a break. And sometimes people need leisure time, but there are people like me who leisure time is great, but it doesn't do anything to fuel my creativity. But I find that working on other things gives me ideas for music stuff and vice versa. Like it is a weird ping pong thing. And I wonder if you feel like your brain is the same way.
Yeah, I think I can definitely relate, you know, to you with that. I think it's just, you know, without sounding too much like a dickhead, it's.
I don't think you sound like a dickhead, dude. You're fine.
When a few years ago, when everyone was like, "Yeah, like music is all I do. Music is, you know, everything to me." Like that's great. But you know, in the social setting, you know, regardless of, you know, your own mentality and your own accomplishments, in the social setting, I felt like a few years ago when people were solely saying that, it was kind of just to stroke their own ego, you know. And again, without sounding like a cunt, like it's just, and I'm British, I can say that word. So
yeah, you have official permission. It's been notarized by the Queen and everything.
Yeah, I'm all good on that. But yeah, I think people just like to say it because it stroked their ego. Because, you know, as we were saying before, music is a very shunned thing in regards to, you know, public interest and funding and career choices. You know, whenever, you know, a lot of people want their kids to be lawyers or doctors, and if someone turns around and goes, "I want to be a musician," their parents are like, "What the fuck?" Like, luckily that never happened for me. You know, I've always had such a supportive system around me in terms of parenting. But yeah, I think when people say that they just want their sole thing to just be music, I think it's their way of, you know, flexing on the other people of like, yeah, I can survive off music. I can solely live in my rent. I can, you know, fund my fucking Roth IRA with money from music, and that's dope. You know, like that is an accomplishment, and congratulations. But that should be something that, you know, you pertain to yourself, and that you should hold dear to your heart of an accomplishment that you've made yourself. I don't think like it should be a social flex. I mean, it's the same with people who wear gaudy clothes and, you know, try and show off how much money or how little money that they have through that. It's just I see it in the same kind of vein. You know, I feel like at least for me personally, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm so proud of anyone who's ever made music their sole income and are able to afford to live off it. But for me, myself, when I speak to someone, and the people that I really resonate with are people who are like, yeah, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And, you know, all of those things have a somewhat level of success. I worry about the kind of naivety of having one thing that they solely rely on. Because as we've seen, you know, the past year and a half, it's just been so detrimental to people whose only income was off touring, you know, because they're fucked. Like, and in the nicest way possible. I don't remember if I said this to you last time, but, you know, I've seen kids who survived off like dubstep shows just lose everything. You know, they had to move back with their parents. They had to, you know, sell all the nice shoes that they bought, and it's just horrible. So, yeah, I definitely think the social stigma of just being a musician is some kind of ego flex. But yeah, for me personally, I can't do that.
I'm glad. No, and it is true. Like there were so many people that, I mean, because the world operated the exact same way for so long. So to me, it's like I totally get why, but I feel like also excuse me, I feel like also kind of going a step forward, I think it's all about knowing who you are too, because I find that, again, for me, and it seems like for you too, there's always been a genuine curiosity in a lot of different things. Like, and to be perfectly honest with you, and I hope this doesn't make me sound like an asshole, but like I'm a drummer, and that was like my main music, my introduction to music for a long time. And I played with a lot of people, but if I can be honest with you, I can't just play drums. I find it so boring just to play drums every day. And to be perfectly honest, this is not like a dig at drummers, but most drummers would hear that and they look at you with a stink eye. They're like, what do you mean you get tired of playing drums? I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I only practice if I have to go on tour. Otherwise, I rarely touch the drums anymore. Like, I kind of learned all that I wanted to learn up until this point. I'm pretty good. And if I need to learn something, I will. But otherwise, I have other things I got to do. And I've always been like that. And I feel like it's a lot of people have been like that too. They just have never had the opportunity to be that in public in terms of the creative. We're talking about like the creative world here. And I'm glad to see that it's changing. I'm glad to see that there's a lot of people who are more comfortable being like a multitasker. But also I would argue that it also depends on who you are, because there are certain people out there that really just need to focus on one thing, and they do really, really well in that one thing. So it's about just figuring out who you are in that spectrum.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't make me sound like an asshole too, just being like, I can't stand the drums. But dude, no, I'm glad that you're on the same page. I'm curious, what kind of things would you invest in if you could? Like, if you wanted to start investing today, I'm not sure if you have already, but like, what industries interest you?
I mean, like fintech is a very obviously cliche one, and I think there's, with Silicon Valley and everything, there's an abundance of money, and I couldn't hold a candle to some of these other investors. But I don't know, bro. I just it's kind of, I don't even like know what specific sectors I would be interested in. I think if the time came to it and something was presented to me and I vibe with it, I think I would be down for it, regardless of kind of what sector it's in. Because I think as you know, one of the most beautiful things about it is it's just so hands off. Like you're essentially just a bank. You're a bank, and you earn interest and all that kind of shit. But yeah, I think I would love to get into. I'd love to find like a really cool I don't know, for example, like a graphic designer who, even just little things like that, who, needs a new computer or needs a new setup or needs a new, like a photographer who needs a new studio and things like that. And it be like kind of a collaborative thing on that. I think the bigger kind of industries and the bigger companies would be too tricky. And obviously, but there's still a way to earn money from that by, owning shares of a company and stock trading and all that kind of stuff, which I've already been doing. But yeah, I think like the angel investment thing, if it ever happened, I think it would be really cool to keep on a smaller scale and a more personable thing. Just because there is so many sectors of at least the music industry and the arts industry in general that, like, as we mentioned, from the government and stuff, it's just so underfunded.
Yeah.
And to be a part of that, or to, there's that I think they're a charity, like Music Cares or whatever.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Just things like that, like just cool things like that. I'm just kind of putting some feelers out and seeing where I can go with that, and just hopefully help some people out whilst not filling up my plate too much with a workload. I think that's kind of ideally where I would want to be with that.
Yeah. See, I love hearing that. I love hearing when people are going that route, because it's such a fun place to be in. When you have a lot of those things, and you're right, like with investment, it depends on who you invest in, obviously. But I don't know, like I think it's such a great place to be in. And when it comes to graphic design or like fashion, I'm curious, what kind of brands do you like? I'm just because you seem like someone who like enjoy very fashion forward streetwear, but I don't know. I'm just kind of taking a guess based on what I've seen you wear. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, there's obviously like the kind of more streetwear brands are cool. Being in LA a lot, it kind of just taints the vision of, a few years ago Off-White would have been cool, but now it's just absolute fucking trash.
Dude, I love your honesty, man. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's just how I feel. It might change in a few years' time, but I think, I think the premise of how Virgil Abloh gets his designs and he steals from younger designers, I think is a bit of a cop out. But anyway, um, there's a there's a company, right, called Los Angeles Apparel, right,
Right.
and the clothes are quite expensive. I mean, it's more of the high end kind of stuff, but it's one of those brands where you buy it and you can wear it every day for so many years. And I don't invest in this company. I have no equity in this company, just like but I really like fuck with it. And I have some of their clothes. And the cool thing is I might get this a little bit wrong, but from as memory serves, it's something along the lines of they operate out of downtown LA. And I think they either work with like the homeless population or the immigrant population from Mexico and stuff. I can't remember the specifics behind it, but it's some kind of arm of the company like that. And on every piece of clothing, there's like on the tag it says who helped make it from.
That's cool.
From kind of like I wouldn't say impoverished area of society, but like like just
less fortunate. Less fortunate.
Yeah, less fortunate. That's the right time. But like from the less fortunate kind of part of society, but it's really fucking well made clothes. It's simple. There's no branding on it. It's just like basics, like sweatsuits and hoodies and jumpers and crew necks and stuff. But it's just that with any brand that I really like. I mean, I'm guilty of buying hypebeast shoes, like everyone is. But like,
you have any Supremes?
No, not anymore. I used to flip Supreme when I was younger.
Smart man, yeah.
But yeah, just that area of fashion, and there's a lot of other companies doing it where there's a way that they're giving back to the less fortunate community while still retaining really good quality and just a really good company ethos, a really good message that they're putting out there. So that's the one I can name off the top of my head is Los Angeles Apparel, but I know there's a few others doing the same kind of thing, but that's the kind of movement per se that I really attribute to enjoying, I guess.
Yeah. This message has been brought to you by Los Angeles Apparel. No, dude, I love where your mind is going. It reminds me of this other company called Love Your Melon, which is, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of that one. That's the one with the beanies that they're based out of the Midwest. Really, really good beanies. And what they do is that you buy one and then they give one away to kids who are sick. But the cool thing is like the CEOs, the two guys that started it, every month they go to like hospitals and they dress up as superheroes and they like hand out all this stuff. Like it's the coolest thing. Like their mission, like I can totally get behind a brand who does that. Who, like their whole mission is to elevate society in some way. That's what it's about. Obviously the fashion is important too, but I totally echo what you're feeling. Tisoki, I mean, like, dude, Bradley, you are a pretty cool dude. Like when I really get a chance to understand where your mind is going, there's so much more to you than just music. That's the cool part of it, and that you're comfortable with that. I love that you're just exploring your options and seeing where else can this brand take you. I'm super excited to see like where your music is going, which is where I wanted to go next, because I know that based on what I read about what you're currently working on or what you were working on, and I read this, so I don't know if it's true. You can tell me if it's true or not, but that you're trying to you're trying to get more in touch with like your UK roots and stuff like that with some of the new music that you're putting out. Obviously, I want to hear from you. Like, what do you think about that? Like, is that something that resonates with you? Do you feel like the new music that you've been working on, either through the pandemic or whatever, has it had something to do with you trying to, just touch base more with your roots, or is that complete lie? Am I misinformed?
No, that's. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly. Exactly where. You might want to cut this out. My car just turned off. Hold on.
Also sponsored by Honda. Actually, I don't know what car you have. I have a great announcer voice, dude. I've done a couple of commercials where it's just like the all-new Hyundai Sonata 2021. Yeah, I know.
That's good. No, I need the AC on. It's too hot here. You can chop it back in here if you want. Yeah, I think I through the whole pandemic, I've been essentially just working on an album, and being able to put my mind to that, and have that goal, I guess, drive me through, the ups and downs of it, and obviously being in a different country away from, home and stuff, that's it's definitely lended itself to being inspired by the UK, and kind of wanting to go back to my roots, I guess, in terms of the music I'm making. So yeah, I think, it would be very, very unfair for me to just dismiss that. And I think a lot of people do. They try and paint a picture of themselves as to, where they are currently. And I think a lot of people do forget their roots, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But just for me personally, I love where I came from, and I will forever be inspired by the music that I was brought up on. And I think to not kind of pay homage to that in some kind of way would just be a bit of a waste. So yeah, I mean, we're doing this album rollout now. The album is going to be coming out soon, and we've released 2 singles from it so far. And the artwork for the singles is literally just images of where I grew up, and scans of the pages from my passport, and we got this really cool designer to kind of come up with a concept to incorporate all of it. And yeah, I think I definitely think that's kind of where I'm at right now, especially with essentially being locked out of my home country. That's just where my mind went to creatively, and that's kind of the whole message and feeling behind the album.
Yeah. And what kind of music would you say that you grew up on? Obviously, we all listen to so much when we're kids, but I'm wondering if you could boil it down, what are some of those key influences that you feel really contributed to who you are as a person?
I think like younger days, I mean, a lot of like mainstream UK radio was a lot of like garage. So like, fast paced, kind of pitched up vocals, and that kind of cool speed before the whole, I'm talking about when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old.
Right.
And things like that. I mean, there was a little bit of drum and bass on the radio. But on the flip side, there was also like a lot of bands, a lot of UK bands like Arctic Monkeys and things like that. And, and just kind of that. So that was like my infancy, when I would be in the car with my mom and the radio being on, that would just be the sound that I was exposed to. I know a lot of people in America were exposed to, hip hop and things like that at a younger age. But yeah, just for me, it's the way that I look at it is like, it's kind of just the music that's like rough around the edges. It's not perfect. It's not overproduced. It's not very commercial in a sense. I mean, obviously a lot of the records have had huge commercial success with like Arctic Monkeys and Franz Ferdinand and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of it was that kind of vibe. And that obviously led forward into, as I was growing up, when the whole, like, I guess UK dubstep thing started happening, that into like Roscoe and Casper and Scream and Banger and everyone, that kind of flowed into that. And I always viewed all of that music that I kind of grew up on is rough around the edges, and kind of it all kind of sounds unpolished and unfinished in this like beautiful way. And I think that's kind of what I tried to bring forth with the stuff that I put on the album.
Yeah. Excuse me, my throat today is just weird. Yeah, it's I just gotta drink more water, man. It's like super dry right here where I'm at. I'm in like the valley, which is it's ridiculous. But without digressing, did you play in bands by any chance, like growing up? Did you ever Yeah. What did you play, if I can ask? Or were you the singer? Were you the screaming guy?
I did guitar for a bit, and then yeah, I did vocals. It wasn't singing. It was this shit was like screamo, bro.
At the top of your lungs, yeah, dude. That's awesome, man. Yeah. You ever miss it? You ever miss just being like in a band, like outside of what you're currently doing? Obviously, we all have our passions and the things that we're good at, but you ever miss just that dynamic of being in a band? Because it's very different. Like, it's very different transitioning from a band to being like a solo act or more of in the electronic scene or whatever. But I find that sometimes people really miss that dynamic. But some people don't. Some people are like, fuck that. I hated those guys or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was good parts and there was bad parts. Obviously, I think the collaborative side of it, you know, being surrounded by 3 or 4 other people who you're all bouncing ideas off to create one finished thing is definitely, you know, a beautiful part of artistry. And I do like miss just jamming out, but at the same time, with, you know, where I've gone and stuff, I've kind of learned that within myself I'm such a control freak, which might piss other people off. You know, I mean, when I work with other people and stuff, I'm either into it or I'm just really not. There's no in between, and I think in a band setting that's very dangerous because there needs to be a level of compromise, you know, for all band members, and that's just kind of something that I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or if I'm just
Probably
just jaded, but yeah, I you know, I miss it, and at the same time, I'm really happy that I never have to do it again if I don't want to.
good for you, man. No, seriously, it's all about just learning what you like, because it can be a hellhole. Like if you're just with people who are disagreeable or your ideas don't mesh, it's really, really bad. But when it works really, really well. But it's I don't know, it has like polar opposites. But dude, I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy that you are finding, you know, a way to connect with your roots and talk about some of the past. I'm curious, do you feel like the music that you're putting out, will it resonate with people back home? Will it feel like this is a good representation? And that's not like to put any pressure or anything on you. It's just more so like, for me, for example, like I'm Hispanic, I'm of Latin descent, right? But this is something that I feel a lot of Latin people come across to at some point in their life is, you know, no matter what work they go into, especially in entertainment, there's always this pressure over your head to like represent your culture in the right way. And I can only imagine like being from somewhere else and then moving to another country and then making a name for yourself. Like, I'm just curious if you ever feel that pressure at all to like, you know, like represent the right way, or if your music like will be accepted. I don't know. I'm not sure if that even makes any sense, but I'm curious what you think about that.
No, it makes total sense. You know, I feel like, you know, like you said, regardless of where you came from, there's always kind of that pressure. I mean, you see it in people who are descendant from different cultures but have only grown up in America or lived in America. I'm not sure if that includes you or if you moved here when you were younger or whatever, but yeah, I know for a fact that, you know, the records that I put together are my kind of interpretation of my kind of influences from where I came from. And, you know, I hope that, you know, it resonates with people back home, and it might not. You know, it might be like, what is this like? You know, it's a very, very funny phrase that a lot of people use, is like Americanized. You know,
Yeah.
I'm you know, dude, I might be completely off the fucking mark, and people might be like, this doesn't sound UK at all. But yeah, I hope so. But at the same time, that's not really my goal. You know, my main goal with it essentially was just to captivate me personally and where I came from. And, you know, that's obviously going to be different from a lot of other people, regardless of, you know, where they are in the world. I mean, you know, someone from like China or Japan could listen to the album and be like, this sounds so American. And that's absolutely fine. But for me, kind of where my accomplishment and my pride is like, I feel like this is where I came from, and this is you know, I took enough influences from where I came from and what I grew up on to portray it in kind of my own interpretation, rather than just trying to pretend that I'm someone else. You know, I think that's kind of the best part about it, and I hope that people in the UK like it. I mean, I've seen some messages and stuff from people about the last record that I released. Mentioned that it's very like UK dubstep sounding. So that's cool, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
That's the best we can hope for, honestly.
Yeah.
You do the best you can. You make something from the bottom of your heart, and then hopefully it resonates. But as long as it resonates with where you're currently at, which it does sound like it is resonating with you, I think that's starting off in the right place. Because I do feel like your sound to me has always been very unique, and I am not an expert in what, you know, quote unquote, the UK sound is, but I always like to like dig at that. Like always like to find out more about if people feel like, you know, they're connecting with their roots, and because that's always interesting. It's a big part of everybody's life in some form or another. And it sounds like you're in a very healthy place. You know who you are, you know where you're going to go, and you know what means, the most to you, and you do something about it. And I think that is so cool of where you currently are in life. I'm really happy for you, man. You made it through the pandemic. You're putting out cool music, and now, in about 3 years, you're going to be investing in the next social media platform. That's the hope, right? That's the hope. You can get in super early on all those platforms, and then like make billions afterwards, and then go live in the Caribbean for the rest of your life after that.
Oh, mate, the dream. Yeah.
That's the dream. Bradley, dude, you're awesome. Thank you for being on the show. To end things off, I know we already talked about your album and what's coming out, but I'm curious more in specifics. Maybe you can let me know a little bit about when your album's coming out, maybe if there's another single around the corner, maybe you've got some performances, which I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah, just kind of give me a lowdown. What's on your plate?
Yeah, I mean, we're only doing 2 singles from the album, so I mean that obviously means that the album is imminent. It's going to be coming out soon. I can't say the exact date, but I just I think one of the real only messages that I wanted to really portray is that not the music on the album is very left field. It's kind of slightly different to what I've been doing. There's not really any like bangers on it, right? So I think the only thing that I really want to say on it is this isn't me drastically changing my sound. This is me kind of just encompassing a moment and creating a moment around this body of work, and what comes after it will come after it. And it's not going to be like I'm completely pivoting my whole style or who I am as an artist or changing lanes. So I think that's kind of the only thing that I really want to express and say on it, is that for anyone listening, it's not going to be me being like, this is the new me, this is the new direction, like fuck all dubstep. So that's kind of what the only thing that I wanted to say in terms of performances. I don't really know. I mean, they're so last minute at the minute that there's not really like much planning around it, because a lot of it is just rebooks from last year. But yeah, new album out soon. It's super cool. It's its own moment. You just got to listen to it from start to finish and enjoy it. And yeah, don't think that I'm switching up, because I'm not. I'm gonna just do me.
It's a moment in Tisoki's creative life. That's what it is. It's a brief picture of where you're currently at, and it's all part of a gigantic tapestry of who Tisoki is. And I love it. I love that this is where you're at. I love that. I love where your head is at, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. Here's hoping that we can have like 3 or 4 more conversations before you become an investor, man. That's the hope.
Likewise, man. I appreciate it.